Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home.
Welcome back, Four Visions family. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Four Visions podcast. It's such a joy and a pleasure to be here together today and to be joined by a beautiful guest. Thank you, Roxanne, for coming and being part of this podcast and being open, willing to share with us today. Roxanne is a beautiful woman, committed to her path and fully aligned with her service and her work within the Magdalene Mysteries, and an incredible commitment to the spiritual path and supporting and in service to many people on their healing journeys and remembrance back home to the heart. And such a pleasure to have you here and to get the opportunity to connect with you. So I just want to welcome you to the show and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. I've been such a fan of this work for a long time, and it's an opportunity to come and get to weave together and deepen in this relationship. Introducing myself, I would say greetings, everyone. My name is Roxanne Ruby. I was born in Bozeman, Montana, and grew up on the island of Kauai. And my life has been really just devoted to being a student of the sacred. I grew up very fortunate to have parents that are on the path of yoga, not only asana, but the philosophy of yoga. And so that was really the fertile soil for giving me the lens with which I see life. And my grandfather is a Tibetan Buddhist Lama in the lineage of Vajrayana Buddhism. And so that was also a very strong foundation for me of understanding the teachings of his way of life. And when I was 18 years old, I made my way, or rather the medicine path came to me and invited me into it. And that has been a guiding light for me for the past 15 years. And now I'm a mother, and I'm here today representing my family and the path that we're walking. And in the past 5 years, I have found a deep devotion to the codes of Mary Magdalene, and really beyond her and everything that she represents in her lineage, also to just exploring the feminine side of God and the divine, and especially with stepping into motherhood, seeing the feminine force in all of her spectrum, and having so much appreciation for that, and just feeling a very deep calling to be in service to women and mothers and in that humanity. Yeah.
Beautiful. A wonderful introduction. Oh, wow. I feel this conversation is just going to get really juicy and beautiful. So I'm feeling really grateful for this beautiful moment and opportunity. And what a beautiful story you have. And it's always so interesting, you know, when people have a story where they were brought up in a spiritual community and with a level of consciousness that provides a certain level of context for seeing the world, and a lot of us don't have that as our background. So whenever someone has that as part of their childhood, I'm always very curious what the orientation process was like for you of you know, receiving what your parents gave you and this beautiful childhood and level of seeing the world, way of seeing the world, and navigating it and finding your own path from there. You know, especially we both have children who we're raising in our path and our way, right? And I always am curious, like, what is my child gonna take from this, right? Because we're just companions to our little ones, and at the end of the day, they have their own journey, their own commitments that they came here to accomplish, right? And so for you, as the little girl into the mother and the woman that you are today, what was that like, navigating and reorienting yourself, picking what resonated and leaving what didn't?
Well, I definitely went through a phase of rebellion, for sure.
That's
which
very
I
common.
wouldn't be surprised to experience that with my own son, who his name has different meanings, but in Swahili it means victorious rebel, which his father and I are definitely that. But yeah, you know, in my teenage years, the pendulum swung, and my parents went at it in different ways. My mom was very neutral, very supportive, always made the invitation. My father would be like, we're not going to go out and play until we've weeded the garden and done our yoga, you know? And so I'm glad for that now, but surely in my teens, I had a moment of wanting to distance myself from that, and was partying a lot and got to experience more of the dark feminine. But there was still like a candle burning of, even in a party setting, I still had an inclination to bring the sacred in. Although at that point, I didn't fully understand the depth of what that was, because yoga was just a way of life for us. And we would do kind of ritual, but it was just the practice, right? And when I was invited into my first ceremony, I remember very clearly, 18 years old, and I heard the heartbeat of the mother. And I remember having one hand on the earth and one hand on my heart, and feeling the connection between the two, and having this experience that we were like blades of grass. Like each human was just an expression of the earthly realm. And I just felt like I'd found home. And that was interestingly met at the same time in my life, where I was coming into myself, right, 18 years old, like finding my path and getting curious about the healing arts, and also very passionate about entertainment and media, and how music and film has the power to shape and shift consciousness. And so I feel like those two threads came in at the same time for a reason. And so while the medicine became my guiding light and like the roots that really held me, the expression, the more seen expression, was through entertainment and stage shows and film, and being able to tell stories that can inspire and uplift those that witness them. And yeah, I feel like my parents have been incredibly supportive, although now the steps that I'm taking are, you know, the next part of the journey, as I'm sure our children too will take it further than we could ever imagine. And it's such a blessing, I know, and I don't take it for granted at all, to have parents that tell me regularly, like, I don't totally understand what you're doing, but I support you. And that's the same thing I would like to provide for Azani and whatever other children choose me to just be like their greatest cheerleader. And to get to the point like we experienced this last weekend, where, you know, I'm facilitating and my mother is there in the audience. And also she was teaching yoga every morning and facilitating the rising practice. But I really found myself at one moment thinking like, wow, what is my son going to be teaching from the altar someday while I sit back and receive his wisdom?
Oh, wow. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Totally.
Yes, I love those visions and glimpses into what the future holds. And there's something also about, you know, being a woman who's so dedicated to the feminine mysteries and raising a son. I'm sure that that's been incredibly potent for you.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a big responsibility to be bringing up the next generation of men, especially at a moment where, I mean, we talk about the feminine mysteries and the feminine rising, but with that is the masculine being exalted and restored, and in many ways reclaimed for the degradation of the masculine that's happened through what we call the patriarchy, which isn't by nature a masculine force. It's just a distortion of all of the energies that have made their way out of their proper seat. And so as we're putting those energies back into their seat, it's a huge gift to be able to offer my influence and raise a man that honors and respects himself and those around him and the earth, and can rise into the leader that he already is. Like, he's already my teacher. You know how it is.
Oh, so beautiful. Such an incredible privilege and blessing. And I want to get into the Magdalene Mysteries and the incredible work that you're doing. I'm curious, though, what is it like sharing it with your son and having him around these feminine rites of passage? I know, like, for me, just even with, like, my menstruation, getting to share that with my son is, like, it's so healing and beautiful. Just his natural curiosity about the feminine ways and what it means to be a woman. And tell us a little bit about, you know, the unique path that you're walking and how you share it with your little one.
Oh, it's so sweet. I mean, he's 2, but he understands a lot. And the path of parenthood that our family has chosen has been radical inclusion, like involving him in all of it, you know, building altars together, playing music together. He's fully playing guitar, and he can lead Yawanawa chants now.
Wow.
Like Hoke Morene is his favorite chant, and he will sing it by himself.
That's amazing.
And lead us in that. And so I feel this is the way for us to just, you know, not have it be like, oh, this is what we do and this is, you know, separate from him. Like when I set my altar in the morning and involve him with it, he loves lighting candles. And it's just so sweet to get to share the thing that's most precious to me with him and see it light him up and see where he takes that. And especially, for being a woman and having my own cycles, you know, his dad is very aware of, we have this joke that one of our elders passed to us, like when you marry a woman, you don't just marry one woman, you marry 4, because we have each of our 4 phases that are very unique and different one from another. And he's a little young for it now, but definitely we will be communicating with him as we already are, like, okay, this is the stage that I'm in, and right now I want to play in a rough house, and, you know, be more like that with him when I'm in my fullness. And then when I'm in my dark mood, to just communicate to him, like, this is a quieter time for mommy. And he does this thing where whenever he hurts himself, we taught him to rub his hands and give himself some little Reiki. And so he can do that to my womb too. And just involve him in the process.
My little one, he always asks me, are you on your moon, Mama? Because I taught him that there are certain things that I'm willing to do when I'm on my moon and certain things I'm not. So he's always asking me and then checking in. It's very sweet. And there's like this tenderness and healing that comes from being able to share with our sons and in this sacred way. It's like a restoration of balance and so much completion and full circle with those processes.
And normalizing it.
Yes, definitely. So you just finished an incredible work and immersion last weekend, and the Watchtower immersion, the project and the work that you're doing with the Magdalene Mysteries is so beautiful and inspiring. I felt very called, and I'm really happy to have you here today because we actually haven't had an episode that we brought in Mary Magdalene and the Magdalene Mysteries, and so this feels really beautiful and ripe. And this episode will actually probably be releasing around Magdalene Feast Day, which feels perfect with all the energy that you're bringing from this recent immersion. But I'd love to get into it a little bit. Maybe you can start by telling us about your journey with Mary and how you came to walk with her in this way, and a little bit more about the work that you are stewarding.
Taking a quick break from today's conversation to share with you a short message. Let's talk about plant medicine integration. Integration work is the action taking and the grounding into the fibers of our beings, the ancestral and cosmic wisdom that the plants give us. It is the manifestation of every vision. When we do it well, it becomes the true ceremony, the ceremony of life. The 4 Visions Plant Medicine Integration Program was created to support you in learning how to cultivate the unique process of translating the healing and wisdom received from the plants into your daily life. Our personalized, self-paced learning platform was developed to suit each person's unique availability and commitment levels, with as much hands-on guidance and support or autonomy as you are needing and wanting. Our in-depth curriculum is comprised of a robust digital content series, live monthly workshops, private spiritual consultations, and community connection. Our faculty is made up of renowned spiritual teachers, indigenous wisdom keepers, and integration specialists, each with unique backgrounds and decades working with the plants. We created the curriculum we wish we had had years ago when beginning our plant medicine journeys. Some of the topics we cover throughout the program are immediate integration basics, cultivating your spiritual practice, building a Plant Allies toolkit, how to make spiritual payments, how to deepen your connection with plants, working with Hape, Sananga, and cacao as allies, the foundations of microdosing, the art of forgiveness and reconciliation, spiritual hygiene, and plant diets. If you feel called to cultivate your integration practice or are interested in nourishing your spiritual studies and deepening your relationship with plants through a one-of-a-kind transformational container, we welcome you to visit 4visionsintegration.com to learn more and sign up. And now back to today's show.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a story of discovery. I was exposed to Christianity, especially through when my parents separated when I was 10. My dad got more involved in the church, and he's very, what he refers to, out-of-the-box Christian, so very open mind, very open heart, and also has a close relationship with Jesus and that form of tradition. And so I studied a lot. I went with him to Bible studies and church and was deep in the book, reading the Bible and receiving a lot of wisdom from it, and also feeling, even from a young age, like aware of the fact that it was very much a story told through a masculine lens, and noting the presence of the Marys, and had this spark of curiosity to tell the untold story of the women during that time. And a few years back, I was on a walk with a girlfriend, Rose Hartsong, who's my partner in the project, and she was sharing her similar curiosity, and we were just weaving together, having a conversation of how Mary was showing up. And at the time, we had each read some books, like Magdalene manuscript, but really it was like just getting started on the path for each of us. And so we were just in dialogue. And one of the things that came up, it was a question that she brought to the table, which was, how would the world look different if Mary hadn't been erased from the history books? Which, of course, she isn't completely erased. She's very present in the Bible, in the canonical texts, for the most significant parts of Yeshua's life, with the anointing, the crucifixion, the burial, and the resurrection, her being the first one that he revealed himself to. And also seeing a lot of clues in those stories. For instance, the role that she played in the burial rites, traditionally, that's performed by a wife. And Jesus, or what we like to refer to him as in his original name as Yeshua, was recognized as a rabbi. And in that lineage, a rabbi is married. And so it made sense that he would have had a wife and a female companion in his ministry. And then looking more into the history of her being the one that funded his ministry and the wealth that she came from, that she was actually supporting and essentially was like a patron for his work, allowing for it to happen in that way. And yeah, Rose and I raised this question, and it wasn't, again, right, it's not just Mary being erased from the history books, but it's the goddess, the Holy Mother. How would our entire lens of reality look different if the reverence of the feminine form was maintained through the years? And everything has its season and its cycle, so not judging what has been, but just realizing that in this moment, it feels very meaningful that her story is coming up for a lot of people. And so through this conversation, when Rose raised the question, my response was, let's make a film about it, because media is my medium. And as a storyteller, I just felt like that would be a wonderful way to explore that. And so we made a commitment to each other. This was back in 2020, to tell the story through film, and not necessarily tell a story that's like, this is a finite history of who Mary Magdalene was, and this is the way, and to evangelize her story and create another dogma out of it, but rather to do what we're doing now, which is to explore the mystery and to document the transformation that happens along the way of just leaning into the curiosity. And it was an idea for some years. Rose and I would get on a Zoom every month and talk about what the film would be, but it wasn't manifest, there wasn't really anything tangible. And so last year we were having a dialogue about where we wanted to go, and I was like, girl, we just gotta ground this and put it into the material plane, and the best way to do that would be to get women together, open the study together, see what comes up, do ritual, make an honest prayer, an honest offering, and film it all. Or not all of it. We're very specific with what we film and what we don't film. And we did that in LA last November, and 40 women came together, and it was such a rich training grounds to see all the different expressions of how the feminine shows up through each of us in her own unique way. And that was so beautiful, and we learned a lot. And so we decided to do it again and refine it, both from a retreat immersion standpoint of the programming that was offered, and then also through the work that we're doing with Julie here. Thank you, Julie, who happens to also be behind the camera on this project, which I love that synchronicity. And yeah, just keep deepening into the story and documenting more of each woman's transformational arc through the 4 days of being together. And yeah, this one was, we went deeper and flew higher than I could have ever imagined. And after 15 years of medicine work, this was one of the most shamanic experiences without medicine. We do a Santa Maria ceremony one night, and we're exalting and bringing reverence to that sacred plant as a sacrament, and that was very deep, especially in this county where we're in California, where ganja has a strong presence, but also in my own life has been abused and misused and not honored as the master plant that she is. So there's a reclamation happening there. And then throughout each day, just seeing how the teachings were creating huge shifts for myself and for the women there, and in the days following, the feedback I'm getting and the posts that I'm seeing, and just how deep everyone allowed themselves to go and held the container together to really go there. It's incredibly humbling, and I feel very honored, and yeah, just to be deepening this and taking it there. And then the film, so now we're at the point where the immersions are like our training ground and teaching us and learning together and creating this authentic space. And now it's gotten us to a point where the next step is that we want to keep doing the Watchtower immersions, and Migdal means watchtower in Hebrew. So the immersions are a place for us to cultivate our matriarchal leadership, our presence as watchtowers in our own communities, so that we can be beacons and lighthouses for the people around us. And now the next step is to make the film, which is a pilgrimage journey through the places, the territories where Mary is known to have lived and worked and studied and served. And
Wow.
yeah, that hopefully will start in France next year.
I just got full body shivers. What a beautiful, beautiful prayer. Just sending so many blessings for this work that you're doing. Thank you for doing it, because it's so transformative and healing. And wow, I'm very curious to hear more about each, like if you can speak a little bit to each woman's unique relationship with Mary as it has unfolded in the immersions, because one thing that I have learned with walking with Mary and just having her be present in my own journey is that she brings the medicine for me personally differently at each moment in my life. And I've seen her connect with women and all people in different ways. And that's one of the things I really love about Mary Magdalene is she has so many different facets, right?
Like the feminine.
Like the feminine. And she is,
Yeah.
she's just such a warrior, rebel woman, loving, eternal love and beauty and grace, but so much strength too. And there have been moments where I've leaned into her softness and then leaned into her fierceness. And what an incredible archetype to align with and to devote your work to, because this is what we're needing at this time for the healing of all of humanity, is for women to find this fullness of our embodiment and to be able to tap into the many different facets of what it means to be a woman. I know that for me personally, Mary Magdalene has been fundamental in orienting myself. I study within the culture of Yahe, the Colombian cultures, and it's a very masculine lineage. And there are a lot of elements of the architecture of the culture. I've been working with this tradition for over a decade now, so I'm really committed to this study. And Mary has been like one of my biggest allies in navigating it, because to be within a masculine culture and lineage as a woman, I've had to learn how to really root deeper and deeper into what it means to be in my empowerment and to hold that space and to really navigate and see the way things are and not lose myself or give away my power within something that is on the outside very masculine, but is sacred and perfect in its divinity and its design. And so Mary Magdalene has helped me so much over the years, and I have a really special connection to her. And yeah, she's very personable. Like, it's a very intimate relationship when you attune to Mary and call her forth. And I'm curious if you can share a little bit about that and what you've witnessed within the women that you are working with.
Yeah, it's very dynamic. And one thing that, especially through talking to a lot of women about their journey with Mary, she seems to, like, the essence of her spirit seems to arrive when there's a kind of dark night of the soul moment happening. Like, that is a commonality. And so this is why I think she's coming up a lot right now in our time, because we're in this collective dark night of the soul where there's just a lot being revealed within our collective trauma, playing itself out through the war machine and the agro-industrial complex, and war being waged on our soils, on women's bodies, on our children. And so I do feel like her spirit comes when it's needed. And as many ascended masters have come and appeared in times of need. And I've seen that in my own life. I've seen that in other women's life. And I saw this weekend, we were making a prayer. There was different stages to the walk that we were making this weekend, with each day being devoted to a specific element, and also walking a code of 4 that has been passed to us from some of our Colombian teachers, where we study the Andean cosmovision down in the Putumayo region. And this code of 4, that's the birth, death, rebirth, and manifestation. And the journey from the individual to the couple, where we die to ourselves to come into union with another, to then creating the family, which is the 3. And then the 4th is the manifestation, or the nation, the community. So there was different prayers happening each of those days and different offerings being made. And the 3rd day, the community, the rebirth day, was a prayer of the Hieros Gamos, of creating unity through diversity, through bringing the masculine and feminine, the darkness and the light, opposing polarities within ourselves, bringing them together to be able to find that equilibrium and that center and balance. And the altar was a masculine altar. So we had done a divination. We use a specific kind of divination technology to divine a lot of the rites that we do. And it was a masculine altar, so very phallic.
Wow.
And we were exalting the masculine and honoring the men in our lives, and honoring that this work, while it is feminine work, it's meant to be a blessing and to benefit all genders and all people, and that we need to uplift our men in this process. And it was interesting because in that day, while we were making a prayer of union, as it does, the lights got turned on, and all the places where we're inclined towards separation became illuminated. And we saw that happening within the group collective of people being activated, which a girlfriend of mine, she's like, I'm shifting the word trigger to activated. And it was great. The first watchtower, there was like no activation, no triggers. Like everybody was just having the best like girlfriends, sleepover, such a good time, no drama whatsoever. And there was no drama with this one either. However, some stuff really came up to the surface to be looked at. And I felt that was the spirit of Mary. Like with this work, as you know, with medicine work, it's like we create the container, we make the prayers, we create a safe space, we have the guardians, we do everything we can, but then we let the spirit of the ceremony carry it. And then it just really becomes this dance of attuning to what's happening and how it's unfolding, and working together to understand how to be in service to what's unfolding, to be able to maintain peace and to keep just surrendering to what is, while also, you know, co-creating the experience with spirit and with the mystery and with ourselves. And it got to a point where the separation was present in the field. And I noticed it within myself too, and how I'm sure you're familiar with this idea of the Wetiko, the mind virus, which is like this, this nature of separation that has run rampant over the last millennia, causing a lot of strife on our planet. And I like to refer to it as the Wetiko, or the mind virus, versus darkness, because I really think we need to reclaim the beauty of darkness and like that dark time of our menstruation cycle, and not make it bad or wrong. And so, the separation started to manifest, and there was different stories going in different directions. And I saw how the Wetiko is contagious, because there was a few dynamics where, for myself, even in a position of leadership, I was fielding what was unfolding in the space, and I started to create the other, right? Like there was something that was presented, something that someone said that was activating, and it was unfamiliar. And so oftentimes we make the unfamiliar bad and wrong, and we judge it and we push it away. And initially it didn't do that to me, but as I saw that start to happen in the group dynamic, I also saw how it then manifested in myself. And how careful we have to be, how vigilant we have to be to not let that virus affect us, because the collective field is very strong. But we made some executive decisions. The team was so solid, and everybody came together, and you know, just the core team of supporters came and consulted about like, okay, this is present, what do we do with it? And there was different possibilities. And what we decided to do was just use our tools and clean it up and do a big smudge and go make a beautiful offering and plant some precious things into the soils and pray to the earth and just feed back that which feeds us. And it was like a 180. Like it went from the moment where the dissonance happens and the separation came, and then instead of avoiding it and bypassing it, which happens a lot in the spiritual New Age community, you know, we want to be all love and light, but the ego was showing up. And so we made a choice to look at it with love, and how you were saying with Mary, you know, like have compassion, have unconditional love, and also be fierce and know where we need to keep boundaries and where we need to clean things up. And we worked together as a team, cleaned it up, brought it back to beauty. And I'm only grateful for that experience because it showed each of us where we can incline towards separation when something happens that we don't fully understand or agree with. We learned a lot how to take care of ourselves within a ceremonial context, how to take care of the group, and then how to, like reset the energy when things get weird, which in life, things are going to get weird. So it was a wonderful teaching. And at the end of the day, I just was sitting at the altar and we had this beautiful portrait of Mary. And I was like, wow, you're really, moving through. And I feel very grateful for how she showed up in each woman through the course of those 4 days. And it was like I was looking at 40 faces of Mary. And each conversation I had was like, I'm talking to Mary right now, or however it is that we want to call her, the exalted feminine force, and all of her wisdom and all of her struggles, and all of her beauty. And I just felt so supremely honored to be in the company of leaders.
Thank you. Wow, it's so beautiful and powerful, and honestly speaks to the potency of the container too, because while it's lovely to have a union that's like a beautiful celebration when things come up and we're able to move through them within the context of a group like this, that's when the true healing happens. And wow, just everything that you're sharing about what you guys went through, it's like so clear that Mary was there guiding your experience, because this is her teaching of returning to union, returning to the fullest embodiment of seeing the beloved in all. And so what an incredible, potent experience to get to feel her and be carried by her in that beautiful space together. And that's really, the work. That's what we're here to do. And we can do it in so many different contexts, but when we call upon a specific ally or ascended master archetype, we get to invite in their medicine, their messages, their information. And so her cosmic design, which is so full and so multifaceted, holds so many codes and keys to what you're sharing about this, like the way forward for us as humanity, and to be able to see those things, let them come up, learn from them, and then that return home to the heart that you all found within that experience, that's what we need to learn how to cultivate in every moment and every instance. And it just brings me so much joy to hear that all the women that were there with you last weekend had this experience, because they get to go home into their lives and they had a profoundly transformational experience through this container, and specifically this, rearing of the darkness and rearing of the ultimate separation, and getting to learn how to navigate separation. To me, that is one of the ultimate skill sets that we need as spiritual warriors, right? And that's true empowerment. Once we come into reconciliation with what separation is, how to navigate it, how to acknowledge when it's there, and how to return back to love, we can learn that. We can do anything, right?
That's exactly the title. The subtitle for the project is The Sacred Return to Love. Yeah, it's really quite magnificent. And just one thing I'll add too with what you're saying, even just if we look at it from a lens of the nervous system, which is such a hot topic right now, And two of the women on our team, Jade and Alea, they're young women, well studied. Jade has her master's degree in experimental psychology. Alea has been on the somatic path, so approaching the nervous system through the body. And they have a project together called Neurosovereignty, and they're a big part of our altar with Watchtower because they bring forth this piece of creating sovereignty of our mind so that we're not taken by all the movements of the exterior world. And one thing that they've really been driving home for us is that a regulated nervous system doesn't mean that we're just love and light and bliss all the time. It means that we can ride the natural cycles of life and be able to keep coming back to a regulated place. But that we do have moments where we're dysregulated and that we're riding that wave with grace. And so I do feel with the intention of the prayer being studying that, we got to experience it collectively and see how much we learn when we become a bit undone and then we weave it all back together in a much more integrated way.
Yes, and the weeks that are going to follow this experience for every woman who was there are going to be filled with that integration, right? And we were talking a little bit about this before we started, and you know, for Visions, we focus a lot on integration. We have a plant medicine integration program and a learning platform where we give people a lot of tools. And integration is a hot topic, but oftentimes people think it had just related to plant medicine. And the reality is we're always integrating, and every single moment we're integrating what just happened, and spiritual experiences and moments of profound spiritual opening always require a tremendous amount of integration to be able to really bring everything home and ground everything in. It's a very important process, and it's a process that many of us don't have the skills to do properly. It's not something that is often placed a lot of focus on what comes after, right? And so I'm curious, you know, you have your path of the plants as well as now this work that's also requiring that container afterwards. What are some things that you can share with us regarding this process of nurturing the gems that were planted, you know, in these moments of profound connection, apex, climax of these spiritual portals, and how we can bring that into our everyday lives, and why we're doing what we're doing is for that, right? And so it's like this really important element of creating those spaces.
Taking a short break from today's episode to share about an incredible product line that we absolutely love. It's called Clarea, which means clarity and illumination. Clarea was created from divine inspiration and guidance that our coherence of body, mind, and soul are born from inner clarity. These creations are alchemized with the intention to bring forth health and well-being to the totality of your temple to nourish a vital, thriving life. Holistically handcrafted with love and care for your well-being of mind, body, and soul. An offering that is life-giving, relevant, and aligned for all life and the future generations to come. Clarea is formulated from over 33 years of the founders' combined in-depth, dedicated study, research, application, and experience with holistic health, Ayurveda, herbalism, permaculture, detoxification methodology, and healing. Everything is 100% organic or wild-crafted, biodynamic, homegrown, vegan, botanical, pure, all ingredients of the purest, highest grade, sourced ethically and sustainably. Clarea is a full-circle sustainable project that aims to create as big as an impact for our Mother Earth and all life as possible. We are 100% aligned on every level with this beautiful company's mission, and for that reason, we felt called to share this incredible product line with you, our Four Visions family. 10% of all proceeds go directly to nonprofit organizations aimed at environmental regeneration and restorative efforts, specifically for water cleanup, protection and preservation of the waters, restoration of bee populations, protection of indigenous sacred lands, rights, and natural resources, reforestation, and endangered species and animal rights. Check out the link in the show notes and make sure to use the code FVFamily to snag some savings on your order. And now back to today's episode.
Yeah, integration is so important and often overlooked. We have this nature right now, while there's so much accessibility to all kinds of different transformational experiences, and kind of like this culture of like getting all your gold stars, all your spiritual gold stars, but not letting each thing fully land, or how our teacher Alejandro Sanson says, ferment, like giving it that time to reveal. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I've developed a really wonderful relationship with time. And I'm grateful for the passing of time and how much more gets revealed when we plant a seed, which really, like any initiation or ceremony or breathwork retreat or transformational festival or even a conversation, can move a lot in us. And when we pass through any threshold, it's a seed that's being planted. And it's so beautiful to receive that seed. And there's like almost pre-integration, which is cultivating the soil to then be able to receive the seed. But then once we have that seed planted, it takes time for it to grow roots and for the tree to fully come into its blossom. And so I'm making a practice of offering time as part of integration. And we're doing this even just within our family of, sitting in a lot of ceremonies and making time where we just really tell ourselves and each other, like, okay, now is the moment to recall that thing that happened last month. We're going to give it some time and talk about it and what's coming up for you now. And it's really nice to be able to do that also within a container of people who get it. Sometimes we can be so excited to talk about the big experience that we just had, but if we bring voice to it too much too soon and with people that don't have any frame of reference for it, maybe they don't understand it, or maybe they even judge it, it can taint the experience a bit. And so learning how to just hold things and let them have their time to enroot in, and then having small groups of trusted people that we can talk to these things about. I'm so glad to hear that there's a program happening that can support people, because there's so many that need that support. My partner also, she has a whole transformational integration platform now where she's helping people that are not just from plant medicine ceremonies, but from a festival, because that's huge. That can be life-changing.
Totally.
And so there's more and more opportunities for support, which I'm very grateful for. And in my own practice of integration, I find writing to be one of the best ways to recount the experience, and then going back and reading my writing. And also writing, I used to write like a detailed story of very linear, like this happened and this happened and this happened. And now I've come more into like a spiral, just writing down little thoughts. And I find that when I do read back over my writings, those thoughts can create entire worlds of bringing me back into the experience. And then finally, ritual as a way of life, cultivating ritual regularly, a morning practice, an evening practice, a new moon or full moon practice, a time when we come to our altar and we let our nervous system know there's nowhere else we need to be, nothing else we need to be doing. I'm just going to be right here and make a devotion of my time and of my attention to just be with what is and see what arises. Of course, there are beautiful plant medicine tools. Hape has been an amazing ally of integration. And also just study, continuing to study and work with indigenous and elders and wisdom carriers from different traditions, reading books, and just letting the journey of studying help in the cultivation process.
I love that answer. So many important elements there. And it is a constant study. It doesn't end just because the experience ended. And the more that, we walk the path, we realize it's this never-ending cycle of growth and expansion, contraction, and then we do it again. And so finding that rhythm to ground us and find center and recalibrate, it's like a process of getting to know ourselves again after an experience like that. Who am I now with all of what I just experienced, and really taking that time and spaciousness. And one of the things that you mentioned that I feel is really important is this cultivation of intimacy of what we received. And it's so easy to be so juiced up and excited to go out and share with the world or share with anyone. And this level of discernment is so important to making sure that those seeds bear fruit and making sure that they come to fruition. And that's something that I feel is one of the most important elements to walking this path and sustaining a path of transformation and growth is really honoring these processes and the fullness of what they are. Of course, like he's mentioned, finding people who you can confide in and get support from. But there's something so beautiful about, just really sitting with the information and the medicine, the teachings, the healing, and letting it gestate, ferment, age within ourselves, and finding this new sense of self, of who we are after a process like that. And I think that's also one of the beautiful things about growing up and getting older is like our construct of time shifts, and there's less urgency. And I'm like moving into my 30s now, and so it's like I finally feel that rest and that like ability to settle in for the first time in my life, and it feels so good. And this is how we want to live, from this place of really just settling into the fullness of each moment, each experience that we're living. And that's really like the ultimate medicine, is getting to meet the gift of each present moment from that place of fullness.
And I love how you said gestation, because it is like that. It's like we experience these threshold moments and we come out like little new babies, we're seeing the world in a different way. And just like when we're first become pregnant, we don't tell the whole world, it's a very delicate moment, and we want to allow it to mature and get to a place that's steadfast. And we've been playing with this like flip of a phrase with our family of, instead of saying keep it secret, let's keep it sacred and let it be sacred. And there's something precious about that, like, this was my experience. And so many of these kind of experiences, it's impossible to even bring words to. One of the elders in the circle this last weekend, who's our hero, Venke Brathen, she wrote Rituals in Sacred Stone, which is one of my favorite Mary Magdalene stories. And she said such a funny thing around this topic at the checkout circle. She was like, ladies, go home. When people ask you where you were, you can tell them, I was at a nice retreat. They had a cool pool, like leave it at that. If they inquire more, maybe you can share more, but like let it be sacred, let it be yours for some time. And with that too, and we're seeing this in the way that this movement of spirituality is moving right now, how a lot is being informed by the medicines and by the wisdom teachings. And for me, what I want to share isn't necessarily like a play-by-play of my experience in ceremony, but that the songs that I sing and the way that I'm able to express myself and to present myself, or just, not even talking at all, just show up in a room and let the presence that I carry be the demonstration of what has been cultivated behind the veil.
I love that. Yes, so beautiful. So this episode is going to be released right around Mary Magdalene's feast day.
Yes.
And that feels really ripe and present. And I'm curious for anyone listening who is excited about this conversation, might have a relationship with Mary Magdalene, maybe not. This is a really potent moment in the year to connect with her.
Yeah.
And it's a really awesome opportunity to open the heart, to drop in. And I would love to hear, how you might recommend someone to create space in that way in this special time of year.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, just a little history, her story. There's this big misinformation that is still very prevalent, which is that Mary Magdalene was a whore, a prostitute. I do think that she was deeply initiated in the sexual mysteries. However, now we know that there was a specific moment in time where, and I'm not so good as Rose, my business partner. She's really good at the dates and the names and everything. I'm more like the mystical ritual side of things. But there was a moment, I think it was somewhere around 500 AD, post Council of Nicaea, where the Bible was chosen, which books were going to go into it. And there was a pope, I think his name was Pope Gregory. He gave an Easter sermon, and he essentially linked Mary Magdalene as a woman that isn't named in the Bible and is referred to as a prostitute. And he connected those two women and made Mary the prostitute, essentially started a very strong gossip that made its way out into common knowledge. And most people today, when you ask who is Mary Magdalene, will say she's the prostitute that followed Jesus. However, the Catholic Church recounted that I think back in the 60s, the former pope really reclaimed her story and not only set the record straight, but actually uplifted her to the title of saint and gave her a feast day on July 22nd. So that's cool because we're seeing her gospel has made its way out into the public now, which took 100 years. Even after it got found, it took a long time to come into print. So in a very physical, tangible sense, her transmission is coming online right now, available to us in ways that it's never been before. And then the church, the Catholic Church itself, making this declaration, even though it's still taking some time for the masses to catch up with it, they have recounted her and given her this honorary day of celebration. And gosh, there's just infinite ways to celebrate. I would first and foremost say trust your intuition, whatever it is for you to make a sacred space. Generally, I like to set an altar, and in its simplest form, I enjoy to make an altar with the elements. For me, that creates a sacred space to have a little fire, just a candle, a glass of water, which is a big part of the lineage of Marys. They were water priestesses. And Mary comes from the mar, or the mare, and the sacred water within and without. And the lineage of the Miraphors were these water priestesses that held rites for anointing. And so they were working with the sacred oils, and in that way consecrating and divinizing themselves and others. And so, bringing the water forward and recognizing that the water holds the memory, right? The water in our body holds the sacred memory. And so when we have water on our altar, it's a beautiful way of creating a memory and also receiving the memories and activating the memories that are alive in each and every one of us. Maybe they've been a little bit suppressed and kind of dormant, but when we bring water in a intentional way, it can also rehydrate the ancient memory that exists within us all. And then I like to have, a feather or something that represents some air, maybe a cauldron with a little coal and some smoke to bring in the air element, and then earth, which can be flowers or soil, apple, some fruit. We like to make a sacrament platter, and at the end of the ritual, get to eat the fruits of the ritual that was done. So a simple altar or an extravagant altar. I mean, we love extravagant altars, and just creating a sacred space. And it could be as much as you set a little altar and then just say, I'm going to meditate for 22 minutes on July 22nd and attune to Mary Magdalene and see what comes through. Also, there's so many awesome books. Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson is another wonderful reference. I mentioned Magdalene Manuscript, Rituals in Sacred Stone. These are all beautiful. There's so much to be shared. Just
Have you ever read the Maeve Chronicles?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Yes. And maybe we can link these in the show notes. Yeah, add that one too.
Amazing.
Yeah, so taking some time to study, to read about her, to even just Google, and
She's
see
super
where you
fun
go.
to learn about.
Yeah.
So she starts you just start feeling her and getting to know her, and as you read about her, you start to learn all these different things and elements. She's super amazing.
It's endless, truly. Like, we're always joking, we'll never be bored.
No, not with her.
And with all of this way of life, Also, part of the ritual could include anointing to connect to that lineage. Another wonderful woman and teacher of mine for years, who's a part of the Magdalene Project, Natalia Price, who has the 13 Moon Mystery School. She led us through an anointing rite together this last weekend. And very simple, make some oils. Mary loves frankincense, sandalwood, rose, of course. And you can put some nice high-grade pure oils into a carrier oil, like a coconut oil or jojoba. And then you can anoint your crown, your third eye, your lips, your throat, your heart, your solar plex, your womb, your yoni, your knees, your feet, your hands, your shoulders, and just, give yourself that little consecration, right, to honor yourself as sacred. You can do it with sisters also. It's so beautiful to get to anoint each other, or with a lover. We did a divination this past weekend that talked about anointing each other with our sexual fluids. So that's a whole basket to open, but we can go that deep with this work. And then also we can connect in community, so if you're really inspired and you feel like you want to be a pillar, you can make the invitation. It doesn't need to be only for women. You can gather your community, small circle, big circle, open it in a sacred way and see what the community has to say. One more woman that I have to mention is my longtime teacher, Isis Indria, and the Academy of Oracle Arts. And we're going to be doing a Mary Magdalene Feast Day summit with many women and teachers on this path, and men, including William Henry, hopefully, to have a council in a virtual space, so you can plug into that.
Oh, I love that.
And also find yourself some roses, because Mary loves roses.
Oh, beautiful. So many incredible ideas and ways to connect with her and celebrate her during this time. And just feel connected to the heart, come back. She's off this incredible portal that offers us a way to connect more intimately with life and the fullness, the extensiveness of who we are, and find the greater, self-love and acceptance and security within ourselves. I think she really offers that in such a beautiful way. And it's such an incredible time of year. I always feel her really present during these summer months, and especially with this special day coming up to honor her. And just really grateful for you for coming and sharing all of this with us and taking the time to connect with the Four Visions community in this way, and honoring your path and your journey and the incredible work that you're doing. Before we close, just really want to offer you the space to share anything else that feels resonant on your heart to complete this beautiful conversation.
There's maybe just two last points that I would love to make. One is, speaking of these four faces of the feminine, 4 phases of our menstruation, and then also relating that to the seasons of our life. A really beautiful piece of wisdom that has come through the past couple months in dialogue with the Council of Women around this project is how it's a big work to be able to celebrate all those 4 phases, while society is really focused in on the ovulating woman, the fertile, young, vivacious, full of energy, can be a mom and, be a badass business babe, and like how we get really honored for doing all the things all the time.
That's always accepted.
Yeah,
that version.
totally. Like, wow, you're crushing it,
Yeah.
right? And being able to bring the reverence back to the dark feminine, and that society, like, I look forward to the day when corporations are giving women 48 hours at least to have their moon time, and what that will happen to productivity in the workplace. I believe it will change the game. And so, yeah, and then within that too, the phases, how they also can be seen in our life, where there's the maiden, mother, and crone. But interestingly, there's this other phase that comes between the mother and the crone, which is the matriarch. And that's the integrated woman that has birthed life and fed the village, but she is a little bit settling back into her throne. She's not totally going into the woods to be the crone yet, but she is such a resource of wisdom for the community. And so this is a matriarchal revival of bringing forth those women that society tells us, like, we hit 40 and we're old news, when really, like, the 40-year-old women that I know, I'm like, I cannot wait to be 40. Like, that is going to be awesome. And so just honoring all the cycles. And then the other piece too, within this dance of ritual and media, I just want to leave us with this word of bread and circus. And this was an old Roman adage that was said at one point when they were colonizing people's consciousness, which was, if we give them bread and circus on the weekend, then they'll work for us all week. And it was a way to perpetuate enslavement of the public and keep them addicted and distracted. And that they took the two things that really were our birthright, our sacred gifts of culture, our food and our celebration. And now we have seen how our food has been turned into a poison, and our entertainment has also been turned into a poison. And so a part of this work as storytellers is to reclaim those things and to honor our food as sacred medicine and take care of the soils where it grows. And then also to reclaim our entertainment and our celebration and our festivals, and to be able to use that as a place for transformation.
That's beautiful. What a wonderful place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing that in. That feels really complete and full circle.
Yeah.
Yes, more celebration, sovereignty, radical responsibility, the lives that we're living.
Yeah.
Beautiful gift.
Thank you so much. What a gift to be here. And blessings on all that you're creating. May what we talked about here today and all that you're cultivating and the ways that this organization is serving the world right now, that it can be continue to be a blessing and a benefit to the many, many, many people that come around this beautiful project.
Thank you so much, sister.
On behalf of the Four Visions family, we want to thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation and have gained seeds of wisdom that will nourish your spiritual path. If you have a moment, please leave us a review, as this helps us to reach more people. For more resources and information about the plant path, and for the highest quality spiritual tools and botanicals, please visit us at fourvisions.com. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this journey with you all. Until next time.